Hey guys, welcome back to my channel for an all new episode recap of today's Days of Our Lives, December 17th, 2025. So we start off with Tate, who is looking forward to going to Paris with Holly. They're, exchanging text messages, and she sends over his e-ticket. So he's hyped to go with her, right? So he also gets his GPA back, and honestly, we already knew that Tate really didn't have much brain cells, but come on, a 1.9 GPA. Like, it's not even funny at this point. But he's on academic probation, and this is even flying under Brady's nose. Once again, he does not know what's really going on with his kids because he's too busy chasing a lot of frocktails or chasing the latest one, which is Sarah's. So, anyways, Belle comes in, and Belle is there distracted by the news that EJ has gone missing, and she's worried about him because we already know that she still has feelings for the guy. She's just playing around. But anyway, she is worried about him, and Tate wanted to message Johnny about it, but he didn't know how to come across because Johnny's still on the out with his dad, and he didn't know how to really you know contact him on that, and Bella understands it as well. So she gets a call from Marlena that Marlena is ready to be discharged, and Tate said that he will be back to see her. He's just gonna go to Rachel and meet up with his dad there, right? So we'll get into the whole thing with Belle and Marlena at some point. Marlena did see Sarah, and Sarah's glad to see her walking around, and she tells her that the tests have been looking up, and she's ready to get discharged. This scene aggravated the hell out of me because who is Brady to really come at Xander, right? So Xander comes in with some gifts for his daughter, and Brady's like, "What are you doing here?" And Xander's like, "I could ask you the same thing. What are you doing here?" Right? So Brady said, "I happen to live here, and I don't think I need to get into the reason why I'm here, but I'm here until I can temporarily get a place." So he's like, "You don't have to explain nothing to me, but I need to ask you another follow-up question, and it's nothing related to why you're here." So he's like, "What's up?" So he said that, have the FBI, anybody question you about the mayor's disappearance? And he said no. So Xander said that him and Philip have been questioned, and he said, they haven't questioned me at all, and it's no surprise that they would question you since you guys are the co-CEOs and all of that. I have nothing to do with that. So anyways, Brady tells him that he will let Sarah know that he stopped by with some gifts, right? So he said, "Okay, cool." Then he leaves, but then he ends up coming back because he missed out one gift for her, and he's thinking about Christmas with Sarah and how it went really well, and Sarah happened to just stop in. Now Sarah is surprised to see Xander there, and she's like, "What are you doing here? You shouldn't just show up unannounced." And he said that I was there to really just drop out gifts for Victoria. I hope that doesn't violate anything in our divorce agreement. So she said, "No, you just needed to have called first," which I completely agree with. If that's the terms of their agreement, he should have called. He shouldn't just show up unannounced. But again, last time I checked, it's his house. Victor did leave part of it to him, and I still don't believe, I still can't believe, like, why is he not in his own place? Like, why doesn't he contest them, because at the end of the day, like, yes, Maggie has part of the house, but like, who are they to throw him out of his own place? Like, he's entitled to even stay on one part of the house, like even the west wing or whatever. He should have been able to stay there, and he should also have visitation rights to his daughter. But again, Xander is feeling so woe is me, and self-doubt and self-pity to not fight Sarah and even get a visitation to his daughter. Like, I believe he still is entitled to that. But anyways, he says, just like how you didn't tell me that Brady's staying there. And she said, "I just found out about it myself. I wasn't consulted on this, and either way, it's none of your business." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm aware of that, but like, I can see that now he's there to share a room with you, and you have no problems with it." And she's like, "He can stay as long as he wants, until he gets somewhere to stay, and I have no problem with it. He's always welcome." And he's like, "You're just catching feelings for him." And she's like, "It's none of your business, just like, oh, it's none of my business who you catch feelings for." So it's like, I never will catch feelings for nobody else, right? So he leaves and she tries to say, Xander, come back. And, he didn't come back. And I'm like, again, Xander, you can do way better than Sarah. And she is not worth it. Honestly, get over her. Because, she definitely has no problem to get over you and, check in with Brady and all that. And they deserve each other because I'm sick and tired of their hypocritical, self righteous, sanctimonious, boring ways. Anyways, enough of my rant about them because you guys already know how I feel about Sarah and Brady, right? So Belle comes to the hospital to check in with Marlena. She's ready to discharge her, but she tells Marlena that Brady has moved out and he's with Maggie and Sarah. And Marlena understands. And Marlena says, was was it because of me, because I feel it's really because of me, not because he wants to really ultimately find his own place and all that. So she said, just give it some time until Rachel gets better and gets her emotions checked in and everything. It will be all right. Brady will forgive you, right? So she said, I don't think so, and I don't think I need to be treating patients because of that. And Belle said, look, don't make these kind of decisions until you're all you really think about it and not have your emotions all over the place. That's what you would always tell me. So they go home, and she commends Belle on decorating the place. It's the first Christmas without John, and she says it looks lovely, right? So Belle is saying, like, let's learn more about why this thing happened. Like, you and Kristen ultimately kept this secret away from Brady, but Kristen was behind it, right? So she said, yeah, she didn't know that Kristen was going to confess in the courthouse, and she told her not to do that. But, Kristen begged her not to tell nobody, not to tell Brady especially. And Bella's like, but, Brady's treating you unfairly. Like, you need to tell Brady that it wasn't your fault. It was just you, coincided with Kristen and all that. So she said it doesn't make sense because, I still could have said no. So I'm just as much to blame as well. So anyways, moving forward, Tate and Brady go to see Rachel. They ask how she's doing, and she said, she's hanging in there. She doesn't like the food and all of that. She doesn't like the conditions. And Brady's telling her that the therapists and doctors have been saying that she's been recovering well, or she's been talking a lot more. The treatment is going well. And she said, yeah, they'll say anything to parents. And she said that it hasn't been so really bad because she has made a friend in Sophia Choi, and of course they're surprised at that. And she said even though she doesn't talk, she and I play board games and we get along, and it's not so lonely here. So they give her a gift, and it's some gift with Christmas tree lights and also ornaments. And she said, wait, I'm not going home for Christmas. And Brady said, like, it's not gonna happen, right? Based on everything, it's not going to happen. But, your doctor and therapist have been saying you've been recovering well. So hopefully you'll not be in this place too long past the holidays. So she's upset about that. Of course, she doesn't want these gifts. She wants to be home with them. She wants to be with, her mom. She misses her mom really badly, and Brady's telling her that, look, you have to just focus on getting better, and then from now on we can have a lot of better Christmases at home. So at some point they leave, and she's with her pets, not pet snake, stuffed snake, and she is thinking about her and Sophie getting along, and wonder what other adventures they're gonna be, and hopefully they can be on the next one. I'm like, oh boy, this is not gonna end well. Brady and Tate go back to the pub, and they're talking about Rachel, how she's hanging in there, and they're surprised at her newfound friendship with Sophia because of her reputation. And Tate begs to differ about that and said that outside of her issues, she was really good with kids. She's great with her little brother. She used to take care of them, so she should be good around Rachel. And the fact that she hasn't been talking, she couldn't be that much of a bad influence. If only you guys knew. But anyways, they talk about how they just need to make Christmas really nice for Rachel because they plan, Brady's planning to spend Christmas with her there and make it fun there. try to cheer her up, and Tate is trying to tell him that look, he won't be around, he's gonna jet it off to Paris with his girlfriend. But he didn't get to that part that is when, because now his dad is basically indirectly guilt tripping him about how him and himself is going to go to Rachel to just lighten her day, make sure that Christmas goes well for her. But Tate is just wondering how he's gonna go about this, whether or not he's gonna not go on a trip with Holly, or whether or not he's going to be with his dad and cheer Rachel up for Christmas, right? So we go to the Demare crib, where now we're seeing Kristen, Chad, and EJ. Unbeknownst to Kristen, she didn't know that EJ was the next Demare in the crib. He was in the background. So she and Chad are talking, and she's burning up at this point, and Chad is telling her to rest, but she can't get no rest with Tony and Theo snoring in the back. So EJ comes around, and she's surprised to see him, but she's like, welcome in. So you're gonna tell us that you're actually a part of this whole thing. And he's like, why would I really want to do that? Like, why would I really want to be here? If I really concoct this plan, like, why would I throw myself in there? So she said, oh, to just offset the fact that you are the one that put us in this script in the first place, and blah blah blah. So it's like, yeah, won't that be rich? It's not me, right? So anyways, the conversation turned to her cut on her hand. It's infected, it's starting to spell, and EJ starts to make jokes. And she is not like cruel and selfish she is. And he talks about Rachel at this point, what's going on with her, and unbeknownst to her, she is now in Bayview after she intentionally, caused Sarah's allergic reaction and causing her to almost die and all of that. So Chad didn't know all this information. Also, the fact that Rachel remembers shooting EJ. So now Chad is finally aware of the fact that it wasn't Kristen, and Kristen just took the fall for her daughter, because again, EJ forced her to do it because of saving Johnny. So he's like, you let her take the fall and blah blah blah. So it's like, look, my son was gonna go to jail and I could not have it. She had to do what she had to do. And Chad was like, Leo already knew the verdict was gonna come back innocent for Johnny, and like Kristen didn't have to go through this. And Kristen didn't know this little tidbit, and she almost pummeled EJ because of that, because she's like, because of you, like, I could have saved my daughter. She didn't have to go through all this and go to Bayview. And Chad said, save your strength, it's not worth it, you can kill him after you get out of here. And she's just an emotional wreck, because now she needs to get her daughter out, and she really wish she can be there for her at this point. And Kristen understands at the end of the day, like, he's just trying to protect his child, and maybe if it was on her foot, should have done the same thing. So he tells EJ to cool off, and he's like, me cool off? Okay, fine. So he holds Kristen, comforts her. But yeah, that is it, guys. Comment below your thoughts on today's episode. Let me know. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to my channel. I will see you guys tomorrow.